Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. And if you're returning, thank you so much for being here. You all mean the world to me. All right, today we are testing out the craft kits that I picked up from Five Below in a recent haul, and we're going to put them to the test. So stay tuned to see which ones were a success and which ones were not so much. Let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting.
All right, so I picked up a foil stamp kit, a Gilded Art Kit, a screen print kit, a Resin Pour Kit, and a Marble Pour Kit. These are all from Five Below, DIY #1. All right, we're gonna start out with the Marble Pour Kit, and it shows you here everything that's included. I went and got from my stash some cookie trays, baking trays from the Dollar Tree, as well as some plastic cups. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pull everything out and see what we've got in our kit here. So there are two different sized canvases. They've got kind of some design squiggle options on them, and you can either use those ideas or do your own thing, clearly. But they also included a couple of stir sticks, some different colors of paint. This that I'm showing you right here is supposed to be the texture medium, and then it's got this little tool to apply that texture medium. And I've got a red, a silver, a purple, and a white paint, as well as the pouring medium that you mix in with the paint to make it more pourable. And then the gloves I was showing you. So these are all individually wrapped, so I went ahead and got them ready, and then I wanted to make sure they were going to fit on my tray. And I've got some extra cups that I'm going to prop up underneath the canvases. This is so that when we go to pour all of the paint on and it leaks off the sides, the edges, it's not going to be sitting in all of that. It'll be elevated up off of the tray, and the tray will catch any excess. So now I'm piercing the top of this. It was actually much easier to pierce than it looked right there because I didn't realize I'd already gone through it. And unfortunately, there was not a whole lot of this product in here. I had gone ahead and decided I was going to do both of the canvases, but honestly, there was not enough of this texture medium for even that smaller canvas. So I did my best. I got out as much as I possibly could. I actually ended up splitting the little tube there too. And so I'm scraping it off the side to get as much of it as I can. And then I went ahead and started smearing it all over the canvases. The instructions said that you are supposed to make sure you cover the canvas completely and then go back and add more texture. Clearly, there is not enough of this to even coat the entire canvas, let alone add a lot of texture to it afterwards. I was thinking I might be able to use something like a spackle. It was kind of that consistency. Maybe you'd add a little bit of water to your spackle to get it to this consistency, and maybe use that and allow that to harden and dry, and perhaps that would be a solver. But when they're selling these kits, you kind of expect it all to be as advertised, right? So now I'm emptying my paints into my cups, and they are supposed to be the consistency of buttermilk, which is, I think, just like a heavy, I think it's probably got like a heavy cream consistency. I'm not really sure. I haven't had buttermilk ever, but that's my impression, right? So these are clearly a little too thick. The instructions did say that you could add water, but I figured I'd add my medium for the paint pour first because I knew that this was going to make it a little bit more liquid. So I'm adding that into my paints first and trying to see if I can get it to the right consistency before I start adding water. So I did my best with that, and I found that the red and the purple were a much better consistency than the white and the silver. So it took a lot more effort of mixing the silver and the white together, and eventually I did go and get water. So I basically just filled up about 3/4 3/4 of the way each of these little tubes, and then I shook them all up to try and also get some of the excess paint that was still in the container. And then I was able to snip off those tips and squeeze it into the paint little cups. And I did it that way so that I had a little control over how much water I was putting in, and I could add more as I needed, because you can always add more, you just can't take it away once it's in there, right? So that was the way that I proceeded. And some of the paints mixed better than others. You'll see the white really had a little bit of a problem, but it still ended up coming out with a neat effect. I would say, I believe this particular kit is, I think it said it was for ages 6 and up. So if this is something you are doing with a child and it is their first experience with paint pouring, I would say this is a great kit. It'll be a lot of fun. You know, it's inexpensive because it's from Five Below, and the end project actually was not terrible, I thought. You'll have to let me know when you see it in a minute, but clearly right now I am just using all my different colors and I'm kind of pouring it all over the surface. Now here's, you can see with the white, it wasn't blending well at all. Yeah, it was kind of icky looking. And actually the white paint ended up having more texture than the texture medium. So it actually kind of gave the paintings a little bit more interest just because of the way that it wasn't cooperating. So I'll take that as a happy accident and we'll go with that way. But I am just draining off the paint, and as you could see, I figured, you know what, let me pour it onto the larger one off of the smaller one, because I wasn't convinced I had enough paint to coat everything if I didn't do that. So that was what I opted to do. I am not an expert paint pourer. I need to go check out my friend Angie's page and see how she does and get some tips from her. But this is the way that I went ahead and did it. Now I had reserved some paint as it had recommended, but clearly I've got it all over my gloved hands. So I'm taking my gloves off. I'm going to go ahead and set those aside, and then I'm going to grab my clean cups with the excess paint, and I'm just going to kind of go with it a little bit here and there just to make some fun designs, or not even designs, but just trying to give it a little bit more variance with my color combinations here, because I felt like the red kind of took over. So I added that purple and a little bit more gray, and that's it. This is it all dry. Let me know what you think. DIY number 2. All right, we're gonna try out this foil stamp kit. It has paper in here, it has the foil in here, it has the heat pen, as well as the some envelopes. So I'm pulling out this pen and I'm trying to figure out how this thing works, and it takes 2 AA batteries. So I went ahead and grabbed some of those from my kitchen and added those in, and then I went ahead, and each of these kits actually does have a really, for the most part, very clear instruction sheet. So I'm going to pull that out along with the paper that they have in here, and it's going to kind of walk me through everything I'm supposed to do. Now, I have never worked with foil before, ever. So this is all new to me. I'm trying to figure out how it works. I probably should have Googled it and done a little bit more research, but I figured, you know what? If I'm somebody who is just looking to try and get into crafting and I see this at Five Below, you know, I'm probably gonna just try and see what I can do with it the way that I am now. So that's what I did. I also pulled out some other colored pieces of paper, thinking that I might be able to make a bookmark out of the one, but on the outside of the box they had some really pretty pictures using other colors. So that was my thought behind that. I was kind of like, oh, plain white? No, I want to do something with color. So I've got my little pen, and you can see you're supposed to press down on that button while you're doing it. As soon as you let go of the button, it stops heating the little element at the tip. So I'm doing my best, trying to press it down. following the instructions. I was not sure if I was drawing on the right side of the foil, so I'm just kind of going with it. It's kind of puckering as I go. It was not honestly very easy to write on, so I'm just like, all right, well, we'll see what happens. I'm doing my best, and then I broke the tip. I broke the tip off of it. I guess I was pressing too hard, so I tried bending it back the other way to see if I could get it to work. And yeah, I was kind of bummed. And I peel it away and there's like hardly anything there. So I'm like, well, maybe I was using the wrong side. So I flip it over and I try to bend my little tip back so that I can try to make it work. And I'm gonna try it again. So I'm writing on the opposite side this time, and as I'm doing this, it's clear to me that I had it right the first time, because I was basically just taking the stuff off on my little heated pen. So I flip it back over. I'm like, you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way. I'm going to try this some more, and it didn't want to do it. You can see there's a little bit on there, but it didn't want to do it. So I finally was like, you know what? Let me try and get my soldering iron, my hot knife, or whatever you want to call this. Like, let me see if I can make it work with that. Yeah, no, I mean, it did a little bit, but as you can see, it's just so hard to keep this in place. If you work with foil and have some tips for me, I really would like to understand how to work with this medium, because this just isn't working the way that I'm trying to do it. And yeah, just kind of bummed that the pen that came with it really didn't work. Yeah, but then, I thought, well, maybe it's the piece that I was using. Let's try the gold. So I moved over to the gold and I gave that one a shot. And again, it doesn't like to stay put. And as you write on it, it tends to pucker. And yeah, it was a little bit frustrating, to be completely honest. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's the paper that I chose. I'm going to try and do it on the paper that they provided. So I pulled out one of the sheets of paper to make a little card, and I'm just going to write thank you on it. I'm trying to do this as neatly as I can. I definitely don't have the neatest handwriting in the world, and I'm also trying not to burn myself, because I got to keep back from the metal of my, whatever you want to call this thing. Soldering iron is, I think, technically what it is. But did it work? Yes. Did it work well? Not really. Did it meet my expectations? Not really. I guess I had high hopes for this. It just didn't come to fruition. So in all honesty, I can't recommend this kit unless you know something I don't know and you know how to work with this medium and I'm doing it completely wrong. I can't recommend this kit. I just can't. But yeah, I mean, like I said, if you have any tips for me, let me know in the comments. But otherwise, I am chalking this one up to a complete fail. So I don't have a final picture. DIY number 3. All right, so now we're moving on to screen printing. And in here, I've got my instruction sheet again, and it was really thorough. I also pulled out from my stash a piece of fabric from the Dollar Tree, and I had used this square for another project. I had cut one of the quarters out of it. So I had 3/4 of this. So I'm just gonna cut off the other single quarter on that one side. So I'll end up with half of the sheet. Hopefully I'm explaining that in a way that makes sense. So I'm just going to cut off that right piece and set that aside for a future project. And now I have a piece that's folded in half. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get my little mini heat press ready, because I want to iron out those creases before I try to attempt something. So in here it had 4 different stencil patterns, which I thought were really kind of cute. And I picked out this one with the rainbow that says be kind. And so I just popped out all of the little pieces, and it was actually very easy. Then I went ahead and got my fabric ready by ironing it. And now I'm getting my silk screen ready. So has this little, would you call this a hoop or a loom? I'm not, I guess it's a hoop. But you set the screen down in the hoop, get that all nice and tight, and then I'm going to flip it over and put the stencil on upside down per the directions, and I'm going to tape it all into place. And it wants you to put tape all around all of the edges and any place that there is screen showing. And that is going to protect the areas outside of your design from getting any of the ink on them. So taping this all up, making sure that my four sides are nice and strongly adhered first, and then covering up the rest of the exposed screen. I'm going to flip it over now, and you can see our image is right side up now, or not backwards. I am prepping my area. I put some parchment paper underneath the piece of the fabric where I'm going to be using my silk screen. And I'm going to set my screen down on top of it, get it all nice and centered. And then I am to take some of the ink and put a generous amount across the top of the stencil. Now, you can only use one color at a time. You can certainly make designs with more than one color, but you need to use one color at a time, and it needs to dry completely before you move on and do a second color. But I thought this blue was really pretty, and so I figured this was what I was going to use for this particular project. So you just squeegee it down. The squeegee did come in the box with it, and you just squeegee it down so that it goes through the screen. Now, I probably should have stopped right there, but I couldn't tell if it was actually applying it to my fabric. So I kept going and I kept going, and I think I probably ended up with a little bit of bleeding because I didn't just let it be. So, first attempt, but it still turned out super cute. I thought that this was definitely better than I expected. I was expecting this to kind of go everywhere, and yeah, so here I am. Now it's all dry. This is the magic of editing, software editing, right? So this was actually the next day. I went ahead and I folded it inside out, and I am going to seal it up because I'm going to make a pillow out of this. I thought it would be a cute little just decorative thing. And you guys, I'm getting on my own nerves now with doing things where I should be sewing and using the hot glue. It's great, it's a good method, but I know how to sew, and I have got to get my sewing machine fixed. I actually have projects I want to share with you guys that require the sewing machine, so I've got to get that done, because I was kind of grumbling to myself about it as I was doing this, but the hot glue worked. It worked perfectly fine, and if you don't know how to sew, it is a great option. But got that all flipped right side out once the hot glue was dry, and then I'm stuffing it with some fiberfill and some excess batting that I had laying around because that's what I had available to me at the time. So please don't judge. I'm all about find a way or make a way. So once I had it all stuffed, I'm going to go ahead and seal up the bottom of the pillow. I am using my little finger protectors because I do not want to get burned. I've been there one too many times, and getting this all nice and sealed up. And I'm just going to work my way all the way across the bottom, just a little bit of hot glue at a time, because it doesn't tend to like to stay where you put it when you try to do a whole row at once when the pillow is already stuffed. So just taking my time, getting it all done, and I think this is sweet, but let me know what you think. DIY number 4. Okay, Gilded Art. I have high hopes for this one. Well, you'll have to let me know what you think of the end result. I am very self-critical, but you know, starting with the instruction sheet and everything we've got in here. It's got a little cup for mixing the media. It has these little stencils that I didn't end up using because I didn't really understand how they were supposed to be used. This instruction sheet was probably a little less informative. So yeah, I was struggling a little bit to understand how I was supposed to do this and what the steps were. This one did come with that texture medium again, but it was a much larger container of it. You can see it's the same size as the little paint containers that they provided. They also provided a gilding brush and then a regular brush for use with the glue that came with the kit as well. So this time I was thinking about doing both canvases, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to do just one because, again, I felt like there wasn't enough of this texture medium to do what I needed to do. And honestly, I don't think there was even enough for the first one, let alone trying to do two of them. So I went ahead and squeezed it all out onto the canvas, and then I'm going to use my brush and see what I can do here. So I'm going to spread it out because, again, it says you're supposed to cover the entire surface and then build up texture where you want it. And I was a little bit more successful with that this time, although I don't know how much you can really see it with the end result. I ended up actually using it more as a guide for where I applied the paint in a little while. But I'm just trying to get everything covered and then trying to decide what kind of design I want to create on this and how I want it to look. So for whatever reason, I have kind of a tree in mind. So I've got the trunk there, I've got the ground below it, and, you know, just a lot of squiggles up top for the leaves. So now I'm taking a little bit of the black paint that came with this, and now I had waited a while. This is completely dry with the texture medium, and now I'm coming back in. I think it actually was left overnight as well, if I recall correctly. So I'm coming back in with the black. All that was in there was black and gold. So I don't honestly know if I'm doing this the way that it was intended. I'm not sure if I was meant to mix the gold and the black together completely, because you'll see in a second, I actually do use the gold, and I did not clean off my brush. And the gold is like a very sheer color. It doesn't have a lot of opacity to it. So I kind of was wondering if maybe I should have mixed them more together. I don't know. Um, but I did like the effect when I used it without cleaning off my brush. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and add some of that gold in here, and I'm just going to create the ground area. So I'm thinking of this as a very abstract piece of art. If you've followed me for a while, you know I don't really consider myself an artist. I am a crafter. I definitely am not a fine artist. But you know what? Maybe abstract is something I can do. I don't know. There's not really any method or style to what I'm doing. Yeah, everything I do is self-taught. So I just went ahead and, I don't know, let me know what you think of the black and the gold together. I actually thought it was really pretty. And I ended up adding some of the gold foil, or excuse me, the gold leaf, the gilding, if that's what you call it, in a few places to the bottom of this as well. And it was actually by accident. I had dropped a couple of pieces on it when I was trying to remove some from the glued area at the top that you'll see in a minute. And I was like, oh, you know what? It almost looks like little fallen leaves on the ground. And so I kind of went with it. Because the paint was still drying when that occurred, and so the gold had stuck and adhered to the paint. So it was kind of another happy accident. So now I'm coming in with the glue, and I was thinking for a minute that I might need to work really quickly or do sections of this at a time. And I decided, you know, I'm probably going to have to do a section at a time because I don't want the glue to dry too quickly, and then I won't be able to get my gold leaf down before the glue has dried. So I did this one little section, and then I went to go and grab my gold leaf in just a moment. And when I did that, So I've got my gold leaf, I'm getting it open. I'm realizing I should have done this before. And actually there was quite a bit of gold leaf in here. I must say that I was impressed by the amount. I think there were 3 or 4 full sheets of the gold leaf. So I was like, you know what? There's a full sheet there that could pretty much cover the top half of my canvas. So I'm like, let me try and see if I can do this real quick with the glue and get this down before it dries. So that was what I was attempting to do here. Supposedly you are to put the glue down, then apply the gold leaf, and then you're supposed to brush it with the gilded, not the gilded, the, I think they call it a gilding brush. It looks like a small chipped brush to me is what it looks like, but it's just a really soft brush that I guess is supposed to help get the gold leaf to flatten down. And yeah, so again, I have never worked with gold leaf before. These are a lot of firsts for me, you guys. I have worked with resin before, which we'll be doing in a moment, but I have never worked with gold leaf. I have never worked with foil. So I've never done silk screening before. So, you know, it was really fun to do these projects just because a lot of these were firsts for me. So, you know, maybe I will attempt one or more of these again in the future. I don't know, but I am just trying to figure out trying to figure it out as I go. And yeah, I was less successful on some than I was on others. But here I am just trying to make sure that I've got representation of the gold leaf everywhere I think that it's needed. So I'm pulling some pieces of the gold leaf away from certain areas and applying it to others. And this is where I started peeling away the excess, right? So I'm just peeling away some of the bigger pieces that I know are not adhered with the glue. And some of it came away even where I thought there might be glue. So it was a little bit challenging to try and figure out what was excess and what wasn't. So you can see me using the little gilding brush, is what I'm calling it now. But then I decided I had pulled away too much of the gold leaf, so I'm taking some of those little pieces that I had reserved. I'm putting down a little bit of glue here and there, and I'm using my little brush to help me apply it down. Again, I don't know if I'm doing this the right way. Probably not, quite honestly, but it was what I was able to figure out, and it worked for me. But again, if you have tips, I am open to suggestions, but let me know what you think. DIY number 5. All right, resin pour. This is everything that's in there. The honeycomb, I have to say, false advertising because I saw that honeycomb there. I was like, oh, that's gonna be really cool. And I flip it over. That does not look like the picture. That does not look like the picture. So at any rate, you know, what do I want for $5? But it's got the special instruction again. It's got the resin and the resin hardener. It has a couple of different colors of dye. These are red and blue. It has the little measuring cup, gloves, some gold glitter, and a couple of little stir sticks. And so I think I did end up grabbing a couple of extra stir sticks out of my stash, yes, as well as some cups. And we're going to be using the cups for mixing the resin. But first and foremost, getting out my gloves. It's important that you want to make sure you wear gloves. I will say that with resin, you typically want to make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. Some people will recommend you wear a mask of some sort so you don't breathe in the fumes. Now, this was appropriate for ages 8 and up, and I have to be honest, I did not smell any fumes that I have smelled with resin when I've used it in the past. So Perhaps this is a different kind that's a little bit more safe, especially since it's meant to be used with younger people, right? But it is important that this be mixed with an accurate 2-to-1 ratio. So I'm measuring off the resin into my little measuring cup that they provided. I was thinking afterwards that I probably should have mixed all of it together first and then divvied it out into my cups. But I debated for a little while, and then I eventually just decided I was going to divvy it out. So really, whichever way you decide you want to do it. But once you have all of the resin in, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add in the hardener. Now, as we add in the hardener, this is going to be just 50% of the amount of the resin, right? And so again, really important that you measure properly or the resin won't harden the way that it's supposed to. So once I have my hardener in, I went ahead and I stirred these up. Keep in mind that I have this at about 2.5 times the speed of normal. So you want to stir this slowly to avoid air bubbles. And that's with any type of resin. You just want to go slow and you want to make sure that it's completely mixed, really, really well mixed. And as soon as you think you've done mixing it, mix it some more. And then once it is all mixed, for this particular resin, you have about 30 minutes to work with it before it starts to harden. So I had put that other little piece of paper under there thinking I might be able to see it a little bit better. When you're mixing it, it almost has like a cloudy swirl that goes through it, and you want to keep mixing it until you don't see that swirl any longer. So now to my first cup, I've added a few drops of my red, and I'm just mixing that all in. I thought it was really pretty. And then for my second cup, I'm going to be mixing in some blue. And I think I did 5 drops of each of those. So 5 drops of the red and then 5 drops of the blue. I think I did go back later and add a couple of extra drops of the red. And I've got 2 of the blue and 3 of the red in here because I'm going to make a purple. Just really pretty, pretty colors. I thought that these were actually really nice. And then to the purple, I decided I was going to add some of the glitter to give it a little bit of a sparkle and some more interest, right, than just the regular colors. So now it is time to pour it into the form, I'm going to call it. And so I just randomly put red in some of the different cells of the form. And the only instruction was don't overflow the cells. So I'm doing my best not to spill any of it, not to overflow it. Clearly these are not full yet because I do have intentions of coming back with a different color and adding more to it. So now I'm adding in my blue. You can see the blue is coming in a little bit darker, right? So yeah, this was one of the things that I wish the instructions had shared a little bit more. I think this would work better if you paint it a light color and then add your resin to it. Because with the dark wood, you can see how dark it is. Now, it didn't look quite this dark in person until after it was dry, and then it looked equally as dark. So I was kind of bummed about that because I thought these resin colors were really pretty. The resin definitely performed as expected. It hardened as it was supposed to and all of that. Here I'm just adding a little bit of extra glitter. You can't see the beautiful colors because the background is so dark, and that didn't occur to me before I started pouring the resin in here. I'm just kind of swirling the glitter a little bit, trying to make different shapes with it, and that was per the instructions. It suggested you could do that. Putting my gloves away and setting it aside to dry. So you can see here it's all nice and dry. It did have a little bit of, I'm going to call it ghosting around the edges of it. It was almost like the wood looked like it had gotten wet because of the resin had seeped into it, perhaps. I don't know. But at any rate, I've got my plaster chalk paint by Waverly and my sponge brush here. And I'm going to go ahead and see if by painting this, I can give it a little bit of a pop. I was hoping that it might brighten the whole thing up. And while it clearly brightened up the wood, it unfortunately didn't do a whole lot to help the colors of the resin stand out. So again, if I had to do this over, I would paint it first and then I would apply my resin. Now, if you are going to paint it first, you might want to think about the type of paint that you use, because chalk paint, I think, tends to be a little bit more water soluble, and so I don't know how the resin would react if you put it on top of chalk paint. It might reactivate some of that paint and cause your resin to become cloudy. So just think about what type of paint you use, or perhaps seal it with something like Mod Podge, or something else that would seal that paint before you apply the resin. That's just a thought to be safe. But yeah, so I don't know. You tell me if you think this is a success or a fail. I'm kind of on the fence with it. I feel like it's 50-50. The resin, again, was great. The execution on it with this particular form, with it being so dark, not so much. But let me know what you think of this project.
Okay, everybody, that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed the trials and tribulations of the craft kits. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up, leave me a comment and say hello. I really do appreciate that support because it helps my channel to grow. Until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.